You have questions, we have answers. This is Jane Muller.
And this is Ken Muller. Welcome to our show, all about real estate with Ken and Jane. Well, Jane, today's show, we're going to focus on strategies to win your dream home.
Yes.
So
it's a hot market again.
It's a hot market. It's a seller's market, and we're in spring now. So typically that's the time when you have the sellers are selling the homes. But we've been experiencing a seller's market for quite a long time now.
A few years now.
And with the seller's market, I mean, just to recap, there's a lot less inventory, but a lot of buyer demand, which is creating an excess bidding wars and buyers giving up all sorts of rights, and there's a lot of buyers that are frustrated because they go from offer to offer to offer, and they keep losing out on the homes they want, and we're experiencing, I guess, multiple offers of maybe 10 or even 15 offers still. So it's surprisingly, I mean, it's surprising in a way because the interest rates have gone up. But I think what's happened is people are acclimated to the interest rates and what they currently are, around 6.5% to 7%, what have you. So that's something. And Central Jersey is kind of unique because of the school systems, and so there's a great demand for people to buy the home. So we're going to try to talk about strategies that buyers can implement, to try to have their offer be the one that the sellers end up accepting.
Well said, Ken. I mean, I have people come ask me, say, Jane, the interest rate went up so high. How come still people buying the house? How come they still bidding war? I would give example, right? Very simple math. There's no test. Don't worry. There's not a test of math, right? Say in the past, they could have 100 seller, 100 buyer. In the ideal world, everybody get a house. But recently, the interest rate went up. First of all, even went up compared with you and I bought our first house is nothing. My first house was 13%. But because the interest rate was so low, from average 4.5 and 5 went down to 3, went down to 2.5, and suddenly raised up to 7. That's a huge jump in a very short period of time. So that's scared a lot of buyers and also disqualified a lot of buyers, right? But having said that, just as I said at the beginning, right, if it's 100 people to sell, 100 people to buy, now the seller went down, say, to 20 people to sell, right? The buyer, maybe 50 people got scared or not disqualified. There's still 50 people try to buy the 20, houses. So in that way, the market is still hot. It's still seller's market because the demand is far more than the supply. So that's why there's still bidding wars out there. It's subject to area, subject to situation, or which month. I mean, sometimes if they know the interest rate suddenly dropped, you'll have a lot of more buyer came out and bid more. So once again, the buyer normally care the monthly payment. Okay, if the interest went down, so obviously they can bid a little bit more to even out. Say if you have a $5,000, $4,000 approved budget, right, for the month. So if your interest went down, you can afford to pay a little more. So that's why the bidding war is still around.
Right. And also the qualified, there might be some qualified buyers out there that said, you know what, this is crazy. The interest rates went up so much. They're at 6.5%. You know what, I'm going to sit it out and just pass on it. But then there are those buyers that have the mindset like, gee, the home prices keep going up and people are still bidding. And, when in the near future are the prices going to come down again? And they don't want to miss out. So they might think, gee, if I sit and wait and I continue to pay rent, I might end up paying another, considerably more than
rent is high too.
Right. And rent prices went up quite a bit too.
A lot.
So they're in like a situation where they feel they have the best choice is to participate in the market, buyer's market, and to try to acquire that home so they have some ownership. So
Yeah, a lot of people ask me, say, Jane, is that a good time to buy a house? Is that a house worth it? I said, well, that's a separate question. If you ask me, is it a good time to buy a house? I said, well, it depends your circumstances. If you have a children like 5 years old, need to go to kindergarten, first grade, I mean, buying a house maybe is a must, right? And if it's must to buy, I mean, regardless the rate, regardless anything, the price, if it suits your lifestyle, if it's meet what you need, maybe it is right time to buy, regardless, right? I mean, but if you have no need, you just still live with the family for free, parents, so you can just see, I mean, to wait a little. But as you said, Ken, how long are you going to wait?
Right.
Some people wait for 3 years, this like impatient. So that's why still a lot of high demand out there.
Right. And then to answer the second question of when buyers ask you, is it worth it? Well, the only way to judge whether it's worth it is what does the market say? Just like anything else, is the stock worth $20 a share? Or is it worth $30 a share? The market decides.
Or $200 a share.
So when you say with certain markets in Central Jersey, if you say, Jane, is that house is that Colonial really worth $850,000? Well, if there was a previous sale and a closed deal, then the market is saying the market is telling you whether it's worth it or not. So it's really setting that. So it's really, and then it's a personal choice if you want to jump into that market and participate in it. But that's what the market value is, just like anything, like any other commodity, whether it be a fancy bag or piece of watch. It's what the market is dictates it. Price.
It's supply and demand, Ken. At the end of the day, it's very simple. It's nothing to do with the real estate. It's nothing to do with anything. It's just supply and demand. If a lot of people want a certain item, suddenly the price go up. If there's too many supply and no demand, they have to cut the price. Sometimes you could have to give it away for free, because, you just want to get rid of it.
Right.
So it's all supply and demand. Deep down, that's why.
It's really simple when you break it down. We said so many times, but it is just supply, demand, and that's the
truth. That's the universe rules, right?
Yeah, those rules will always be the case. The relationship between the two of them.
Yeah, a lot of time people say, why your seller so greedy, want so much money? I always tell them, it's nothing to do with the seller. When you have more than one buyer, truly, right, Ken? Think about this. If you have more than one family want to buy that house or want to buy that watch or want anything, right? So it's no longer the seller. It's you compete with the other buyers. Right, that's really no difference. Like we go through that now. Our daughter is a junior now. I mean, very soon in a few months she have to compete. She have to apply the college. And same thing. It's not what a college wanted. It's what like for example, I heard you both heard Rutgers get 60,000 applications. I mean, used to be they said Rutgers is safety school. Now they said target school. Why? Because they have so many qualified applicants.
Right.
So the standard went up. Exactly. Same with it's the supply and demand.
And then same with the homes. You have many more qualified bidders. So of course the price goes up, just like at an auction, or if you're auctioning a house, or you're going to auction an
the
item,
artwork, same
or
thing.
Card collector, whatever. If there's bidding, if you keep bidding it up, it's going to obviously the seller's not being greedy. They're just being smart and capitalizing on whatever the market is going to give to them, whatever it values. But that's a good analogy with the college admissions, because everybody wants to know for the colleges, what's the secret formula? What's your secret formula? And there really is no secret formula. Like we're going to give you some points to consider for making your offer be
Standing
presentable
out.
And try to stand out. But like with colleges, like the admissions too, they said, well, they look at the application holistically, and I think roundly, and I think that might be indicative of the list agent's perspective and the seller's perspective when they look at a buyer's contract offer. Of course, like colleges, they look at the transcript is obviously important. So obviously the price is important. But then there's other holistic considerations you consider with a buyer's offer, and we're going to break those down.
Yes, yes. Very, very interesting. At the moment, I hope this show is going to help a lot of buyers because there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of disappointment out there. My heart goes out to them. But unfortunately, just like, we've been through with our daughter now, we're nervous, but that's the process. So if you know what a seller /seller agent looking for, so hopefully give the buyer from different perspective, right? Just like a lot of mission, the officers later on when they retired and they get a job, they open their own business or join someone as a counselor. Counselor. So same thing. They give you a different perspective of the transaction. So you can consider that. Hopefully, what we're going to discuss today is going to be helpful to you.
All right.
And, as you said, Ken, the transcript equal to the offering price.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy because those are like the bread and butter, of course, and obviously you need a transcript and you need a certain level of score or you need a certain level of the price to be in consideration, right?
That's absolutely. But once again, the selection process is very similar as a college. Once you reach certain number range, right, and the contract, the offering price or script GPA, it may not guarantee you to win.
Right.
There's
Jane, it's a little
factor.
bit different than a college because fortunately colleges can accept more than one applicant.
That's right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
This is more like the selection who win the winner take it all and the losers are standing small.
Yeah, that's a sad part.
That's
the
sad part,
buyer.
right? So it's only the one, so that's why you're competing. Yeah. At least with the colleges, you have you're with the pool, and there's a chance you could be in this selective group. So
But once again, I did have the example. So we had a home, and the buyer lost the bid, and at the end was they were not far away. They're not far away, but at the end, when that house done, we only can choose one buyer, as you said. And the second my listing went up, this time the buyer got a message, follow their agent instructions, so they won second time. Yes.
That's great. All right, we're already at the break point, so we're going to delve into it after the break. We're just going to take a short break. We'll be right back after these messages. Okay, welcome back. So we're going to talk about some strategies to win your dream home in today's current market. So let's get into it, Jane. The first topic for the strategy is the appraisal contingency. I think most people realize that if you want to be successful with your bid, that's one of the things that has to be on your contract, the consideration to waiving the appraisal contingency.
A lot of time, right? The buyer agent is very important. Some buyer feel somebody just opened the door for me. That's the wrong thing. You really have to interview your agent, the buyer agents, to make sure the persons understand the market, know the market. For example, right, if the house listing for $700, right, the buyer agent has to understand is that a $700 is reflected today's market value, because as a leasing price, it could be is the seller agent suggested, right? It could be the seller just want that number, okay? As a buyer agent, you have to understand. Sometimes often question I get is, how much more I have to bid over asking? That's no one rule fits all.
Right.
For example, if they're asking really accurate market price, you'll probably get that number plus a little more.
That's where you have to really trust your agent. First of all, they can only that question can only be suggested or answered by whomever the buyer agent is. It's not that's not appropriate for like anybody but the buyer agent for their expertise. But you hit the nail on the head, because like if a house is listed for $700,000, that's up to the buyer agent has to use their professional expertise to decide if that $700,000 is really reflective of the price, or if the intention based on the market was because we're going to start at 700, and we want to encourage a bidding war upward.
Yeah, because if you think about it, Ken, if you waive the appraisal contingency, once again, we mentioned many, many times in our show, waive the appraisal contingency, not the appraisal, because the lender has a right to waive the appraisal. As a buyer, the only thing you can do is waive the contingency. But you have to make sure as a buyer, your buyer agent, explain to you what that means. What that means is, regardless how much your lender appraise, you're going to buy this house. So when you waive the contingency of the appraisal, there's a different level. Some is a full waiver. Is regardless, if 700 house, they appraise 500, you will buy it. Some is like from the asking price. If you ask 700, you have to appraise 700, and then above that, they waive it. And thirdly, it's like you can set up floor. I mean, you can say even 700, as long as you appraise over 650, 680, or 730, whatever the weight, right? So to win the house, you have to make sure you understand when you waive the appraisal contingency, what are you waiving? I found, unfortunately, that's why sometimes a lawsuit will not, is some buyer agent didn't explain to the buyer what that means. Waiving. And when the lawyer get over the contract, and suddenly a lot of changes, right? And secondly, whether you financially can waive.
Right.
If you 5% down conventional loan, right? If you bid 750 and waive the appraisal, how are you going to waive it if you don't have enough down payment?
Well,
right?
that's where the list agent has to come in. Like you said, if the buyers don't explain it, that's what a good list agent like
have
yourself,
to pick it up.
You have to pick it up, and you have to say, hey, okay, you want to waive the appraisal contingency, that's great, but show us proof of funds that for the cash component, and also that you can cover the deficit if it doesn't, if based on what the contingency is.
That's right. Waiving. So for the buyer, right, that's a good conversation. First of all, to winning strategy, number one is not the price, not anything, is to interview your buyer agent. Make sure you hire them not because they play basketball with you. It's not you just call somebody can open a house for you, to show you the house in very short period of time. A notice is truly you interview your agent. Make sure the agent is local expert in the pricing, in the neighborhood, and can help you to choose the right house, and then help you to determine how much the true value. You obviously nobody know the appraisal value, roughly how much the house going to appraise. The person your buyer agent have to tell you that. So that's why waive the contingency of the appraisal at what level, full versus above asking versus different floor. That's one way of to make your offer standing out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second one, which a lot of buyers, attorneys probably are not going to be happy to hear, is giving up certain home inspection rights. So this one's a little bit tricky one because oftentimes, I see contracts where they write in the additional provisions, the last page of the contract, the buyer limits the home inspection to structural, environmental, radon, those three items, however, and mold maybe, but it's but that to me, I really think that most, from a legal perspective, I think a lot of that language is so broad that unless you really still have a lot of rights to do the home inspection, because structural can be interpreted in different ways. It can be interpreted very broadly. So a lot of that is just, I think that a lot of that writing is just is like a goodwill gesture to basically convey that we're not going to nitpick every item, the door trim if it's falling off, or the obviously cosmetic is off the table, or if the floor tiles are chipped or broken, or if I don't know, just minor things like if the light bulbs aren't working. But but it's really not. You're not really. It's just so broad that you're doing a full inspection, and that can be argued, and that subsequently is argued between the buyers and the sellers. Oftentimes, what's structural, like the windows are structural, the roof is structural, anything, the siding is structural, the wood, if there's an issue with the basement, the wall. So you're really, so it's something buyer agents are writing into the realtor contracts, but it's not. Legally, it doesn't have a lot. They still have a lot of rights. So once again, this show about how to make your offer standing out, right? So they are
things I seen in the buyer offers here. One is they waived the home inspection entirely. First of all, as an agent myself, I totally not suggest that, because how do you know? You really have to do I know you want to win, but you don't want to buy a house later on cost you hundreds of thousands, right? So you have to do a home inspection. Sometimes I know if you're professional buyers, you do a oil tank and, mold, whatever. Normally if you know there's no mold, but at least you have to do oil tank inspection. That's for the experienced investor. But generally speaking, you should not waive the full rights for the inspection. But having said that, as a second item, you can make your offer stand out. I did see someone would say they would, the buyer would give seller, say, 5, 10, 20,000, regardless structure, non-structural. Say, for example, right, if you say the home is purchased at this condition except the structural, safety, environmental, so on and so forth, and then providing the buyer would not asking for any credit repair if the repair below 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. In that case, if the owner feel the house is well kept, they don't think the house will have any problem more than 5,000, 10,000. So in that case, give the seller peace of mind. They're not gonna see anything in the home inspection request. But if just in case if anything happened, like you said, mold or something the seller wasn't aware of, you have yourself covered.
Yeah, to me that's a more concrete way. At least if you have a numerical value, and then you can decide. But then the argument becomes what gets tabulated to come up with let's say the limit is the buyer absorbs up to the first 5,000. Then the argument becomes when you get the inspection report and the associated costs, what's included in it, because it's still the 5,000 that they waive is still they cannot add to that the minor items. It has to be it has to be the major item, structural.
Major item, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've seen that implemented. You've seen that in some of the homes. But then because this is such a seller's market, the sellers are very keen. And what I've seen certain sellers do is if they know there's an issue with like a window that is the window, a large window that has broken window seals, or their deck is they know it's in disrepair, they'll specifically, the buyers, to really gain favor, they'll have to put in the home, that those items, in my example, are off limits, that the buyer takes them as is, so that they're off the table in terms of asking for any home inspection repair, like in that example.
Yeah,
so that's something that's really where the buyers are saying, okay, we're gonna limit inspection to structural, environmental, radon, mold. We're gonna absorb the first, let's say $5,000 if any of those issues do occur. And thirdly, we're taking the family room window as is and the deck as is. That's just as an example.
Yeah, that's an example.
But that would be something where really they're succumbing to all the sellers.
Strong.
They're coming in strong with the home inspections, just saying we realize these are.
But first of all, protect yourself. But on the other hand, make the seller feel you are genuine want to buy this house, and you're really not going to have any issues. Unless it's something terrible happen, the home inspection shouldn't be any issue. And I think the third thing to make your offer stand out is being flexible. For example, I seen the closing date, you can be easy to accommodate the seller closing requirement. That's one thing. Another example would be I see a lot, right? A lot of our seller is an older, generation, so harder to get rid of the old furniture, so on and so forth. I did see quite a few buyers very creative. They said, look, you take whatever you need, leave whatever you don't. Let me handle it. If I want it, I keep it. If I don't, I donate it, or I hire someone to take care. So in that way, the seller feel this less work for them.
Oh, it's a big,
so that it's a huge consideration when that happens. Yeah. But before we end today, the very important thing I want to talk about is about the love letter. Okay. In the past, some buyer want to write a love letter to the seller, and it's really some agent pass on, some agent don't, because they both have a point. In my opinion, the one doesn't because they don't want to discriminate and they don't pass on. But the one pass on, they will say like, "It's my job to pass on everything I have." That's just good or bad.
And let me just add something, Jane, because did the love letter, based on your career, did the love letter originate during COVID? Was that, or was it?
No, from the beginning.
It was beginning in your career.
From the beginning.
There's always
you
been,
know.
it seemed very popular. Again, and you specialize in the residential, but it seemed very popular during the COVID. And
why, Ken? It's because the competition is stronger.
Right.
Used to be when I started 2009, the market going down to a shorter period. So that
the sellers would have to write the love letter.
To the buyer kind of.
To say, please,
it's not a love. Please.
Okay.
They will accommodate everything. Anything will fix it. So during the few years ago, that's become. But for me, Ken, I always write something accompany my letter because as a buyer agent 15 years ago, my job is to present our buyer, properly. By introduce them, say, for example, I had wrote a letter in the past, say, my buyer growing up in this neighborhood, they went to school, they grown up there. Now their parents getting older, they want to be close by to take care of their parents. And, they love the town. They want to go back where they are. I mean, you could say that that's really, discrimination, or from my perspective, I think it's no.
Just give some more background.
Background is not only the number. I mean, in college, you have a statement, or you have a personal statement, right? Sure. It's not like just a cold number. It's something.
Yeah.
But now the I think Real Estate Association NAR seems like instruct the buyer agent not pass on, and they seems to us once again it's so new. We're not sure exactly where it goes, but they say the agent cannot pass on. If a buyer wants to deliver that, I mean they probably have to find their own way, either send through the mail or other way to do it. But as an agent, we recommend not to pass it on. So in that case, I just want to be, let everyone know about that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. That concludes the show. We're about out of time. So those are the 4 points to keep in, at least the 3 points: the appraisal, contingency, home inspection, and flexibility.
And additional of your GPA, which is the price.
Price, right. Which is yep.
Yeah.
All right. We're out of time. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next week.
Let's go beat the house.